And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. And to start out here for the midweek, Wednesday through Thursday, generally still weak low pressure that lingers over areas of the Gulf and down into the North Pacific, and lingering moisture that circulates back to the north and west will at times impact areas along the Gulf Coast. Going to have IFR conditions there around Kodiak Island, Kodiak City, up toward the Katmai region, and then also out here along a dissipating frontal boundary across areas of the northern central Bering to just west of St. Matthew through the Pribilovs at St. Paul and St. George. For the interior, we're looking at a band of MVFR conditions across the western Alaska Range, across the middle Yukon, and also along the Arctic coast, but otherwise VFR conditions pretty dominant across areas of the eastern and western mainland and over the Panhandle. By Wednesday afternoon, we are looking at generally VFR conditions to hold along areas of the west and east along the Alcan border, but a somewhat extensive area of MVFR conditions across the central western interior, from the western Alaska Range across the middle Yukon up into western areas of the Brooks Range. Also MVFR over the central southern parts of the Panhandle, the western Gulf, Prince William Sound, eastern Kenai, down through Kodiak Island, and then a broad area of MVFR over the lower Bering and the Aleutian Chain. Thursday morning, we're expecting MVFR conditions across the Panhandle and also more expansive parts of the Talkeetna Mountains and along the Alaska Range up into the Yukon Valley and all the way up to the Arctic coast. Still some IFR conditions around St. Matthew down to near St. Paul. And by the time we get into Thursday, we're looking at generally VFR conditions Thursday afternoon across the Panhandle, along the northern Gulf Coast, along the Arctic coast, but we could see MVFR conditions across much of the interior north of the Alaska Range and between there and the Brooks Range. Further west, we have a building high pressure. Surface high pressure will build up to near or just above 1040 millibars over the central Aleutians and up into the lower Bering Sea for later Thursday into Friday and early Saturday. And with that, there could come some IFR conditions just associated with the subsidence inversion there in the lower clouds that might be set up there over areas of the lower central Bering. Past conditions on Wednesday, though, up in the east central Brooks Range. VFR in the morning at Anatuvik Pass becoming MVFR. Same thing at Adigan Pass. Generally VFR edging toward MVFR as we get later in the day, and certainly by the time we get into Wednesday night. West arm of the Alaska Range, Lake Clark, Merrill, MVFR. Same thing, Rainy Pass, MVFR, and we'll also likely see MVFR conditions holding there through Windy Pass. As we go east, drier air, VFR conditions, Isabel and Mentasta passes. As we drop down through the Copper River Basin, we could see Tanita Pass VFR in the morning, giving way to MVFR conditions for the midday and afternoon. And then Portage Pass should generally find itself in MVFR conditions, though the west entrance will likely see a period of VFR conditions in the morning. And right now for the day there, the northern Panhandle, Chilkoot and White will enjoy VFR conditions on Wednesday. Looking at the surface freezing line, it's recovered a bit here back up into the central Bering. We still see below freezing temperatures across the Alaska Peninsula, giving that initial shot of Arctic air that came in on northerly winds and pulled all the way south of there into the North Pacific. And we find freezing levels aloft coming upward as we go across the Gulf. Not a whole lot, generally around or a bit above 2,000 feet. And then you have to get out again toward the southern portion of the Panhandle, Dixon Entrance, Ketchikan, Haida Gwaii, 4,000 feet. And then as you drop further southeastward toward Vancouver Island, freezing levels aloft go upwards of 6,000 and 8,000 feet due to the fact there is a stronger low down in this location with a front pulling back to the north and west. As far as any icing threat, Wednesday we're looking at the potential in areas lower Cook Inlet, eastern Kenai above 4,000 feet. And then here in the middle Yukon, south of the central Brooks Range, potentially in some of the clouds there above 3,000 feet. The upper level jet stream pattern is showing generally a trough over the mainland where we have southwest flow coming in to the Panhandle, especially southern half. And then behind me, we do have this ridging that's building up into the western central Aleutians. This is all reflection of the upper level ridge, and then we're going to see the surface high strengthening in this location as we go through Thursday, Friday into early Saturday. Now, jets, as we drop down to 700 millibars, we still see that ridge feature to the west. And here's the mid-level high circulation over the central Aleutians. And this will be one of the stronger weather features we see coming up here in the short term. But we do have a belt of still some northwest north winds over the eastern Aleutians and the southern portion of the Alaska Peninsula. And then behind me here we have some stronger wind fields south of Vancouver Island and off of the Washington-Oregon coast associated with that low. And then finally, 3,000 feet, relatively light winds across the mainland and the Panhandle. Up along the Arctic coast, there are easterlies at 3,000 feet at about 30 knots, so not especially strong, but that's all part because we have a bigger high pressure up in the Arctic Ocean. And then down here in the Bering, here is that circulation around the high pressure taking shape here near the central Aleutians. So we have that counterclockwise circulation and some northwest winds upwards to 30-35 knots, especially here as you get out toward Unalaska and the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. And then as a result, not too much in the way of turbulence expected across the state on Wednesday. Generally turbulent free here across the mainland, Panhandle, Gulf Coast. But as we get out down along through the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, there could be some areas of moderate turbulence surface to 4,000 feet. And then finally, way out into the western Aleutians, there could be some moderate turbulence in the vicinity of Shemya and Attu, surface to 3,000 feet on Wednesday.